So for the Emergencies Act Commission, they named a Liberal staffer as the independent commissioner. For the foreign interference rapporteur, they named the Prime Minister's ski buddy and member of the Trudeau Foundation. And now they needed someone to be the ethics commissioner, so they named a Liberal minister's sister-in-law to that position of independent ethics commissioner. The same minister who's already been found guilty of violating the law. Mr. Speaker, when is this Liberal government going to run out of family and friends to name as independent officers?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the ski buddy that the honourable member refers to is David Johnston, an eminent Canadian who actually Stephen Harper chose to be Governor-General of this country, and who he stood in his place and commended as being a good choice and one that was appropriate as Governor-General. To suggest that David Johnston doesn't have in his heart the best interests of Canada as he looks at the issue of foreign interference is ridiculous. With respect to the position that he has just referred to on the interim ethics commissioner, again, this was somebody who's been in that office for 10 years, who came in when Stephen Harper was in office, and is second in command in that office.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You can almost imagine the conversation between the Liberal Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, who was found guilty of breaking the ethics law, and the Prime Minister, who's twice been found guilty of breaking the ethics law, saying, how are we going to quit getting found guilty? I know, we'll appoint my sister-in-law as the ethics commissioner. What a plan. It is foolproof, Mr. Speaker. My question, though, is when are they, the problem is pretty soon they're going to run out of family and friends, and after they do, how are they going to avoid their next conviction for breaking the law?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
There's a place where comedy routines can be tried out. I would suggest that it's not on the floor of the House of Commons. What I will say about the conversations that have taken place in the Ethics Commissioner's office is that for 10 years, the individual in question, who was appointed at the time of Stephen Harper's time in office, that Ethics Commissioner, in which she is number 2 in charge, has absolutely made hard decisions on this government, and by the way, other parties, and has comported themselves with total professionalism. What isn't professional is to take somebody who's worked in the public service for 10 years, making hard decisions, including hard decisions that affected this government, and treat them in that way, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The Liberal Prime Minister and his gang of serial lawbreakers were told by the outgoing Ethics Commissioner to take remedial ethics training. But instead of that, at Sunday brunch, this Liberal Cabinet Minister turned to his sister-in-law and said, how about we make you the new Ethics Commissioner instead? When are these Liberals going to take their responsibilities seriously and appoint someone who's independent and can restore accountability to this place for all Canadians?
Hey, bravo. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner's role is extremely important in our democracy. Over the last 10 years in which the person they're referring to has been in the office, and they were appointed at the time of Stephen Harper, in the number 2 position, they've taken a lot of difficult positions against this government and, frankly, against that party, which have been well received in the sense that, Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Commissioner's job is to hold us to the highest possible standard. The idea that a public servant can't, when they have a screen in place, do their job or set aside differences is not realistic, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Well, Mr. Speaker, even the Simpson writers could not have reached this level of satire. This Prime Minister was found guilty twice for ethics violations, but he named the sister-in-law of his Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs to a high position, even though that minister himself was found guilty of ethics violations. So, well, ultimately, will that person be asked if it was okay for the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs to be related to the Prime Minister who was also found guilty? It's like The Simpsons. The Honourable Leader of the Government. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to this matter, this question is clearly capable of acting independently, since they were in the office when decisions were made about the Prime Minister's behavior. The person was appointed during Prime Minister Harper's tenure and was there for 10 years.
Madam Speaker, If there's one position that should be above any appearance of conflict of interest, it's the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. The Liberals have proven yet again that they have not a shred of judgment by appointing the minister's sister-in-law on an interim basis. We're not questioning this person's competence or probity. The cabinet is at fault, however, each and every single one of them, for choosing a family member to fill this position. The appearance of a conflict of interest is obvious. Do they even know what one is? Let's ask the Liberals to reconsider this appointment. Will they?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I would emphasize the interim Ethics Commissioner is a career public servant who has served in a senior role in the Ethics Commissioner's office for more than 10 years. Madam Speaker, that's beginning when the Harper government was actually in office.
La députée de Trois-Rivières.
Président, ça s'ajoute à une liste.
Madam Speaker, this is just one more in a long list of Liberal ethical lapses. For the Chinese interference file, they appointed the Prime Minister's cottage neighbor as special rapporteur. For the Ottawa Protest Convoy Commission, they appointed a former Liberal employee. Today, as Ethics Commissioner, they appoint sister-in-law of a Liberal minister. No one's questioning the competence of these individuals, but why is it that every single Liberal appointment out of 39 million Canadians, is it always someone with Liberal connections?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, once again, what I'd like to be able to do is put an emphasis on the importance of recognizing the fine work that our civil servants do. And just say that interim ethics commissioner that's being referenced is a career public servant who has served in a senior role in the ethics commissioner's office for more than 10 years, beginning when the Harper government was actually in office, Madam Speaker. We owe a great deal to our professional civil servants. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Liberals chose a top minister's family member as the interim ethics commissioner. Of course, they give millions of tax dollars and contracts to close friends and staff's relatives, and this prime minister is the only one ever to break ethics laws twice. So his MPs have too, 4 more times for vacations and perks for their pals. You know, after 8 years, Canadians have never struggled so much, but Liberals have never had it so good. So is that why the Liberals thought that Canadians wouldn't see their ethics pick as anything other than trying to cover their own butts in the future?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. It's actually a very simple answer for the member opposite. The interim ethics commissioner is a career public servant who has served in a senior role in the ethics commissioner's office for more than 10 years. And that began, Madam Speaker, when the Harper government was actually in office.
Honourable Member for North Okanagan-Shuswap.
We should all remember Clam Scam, when the then Fisheries Minister was found guilty of the ethics breach for awarding a $24 million license to a company to be ran by his wife's cousin. Wow. Now the Liberals have appointed the same cabinet minister's sister-in-law as the ethics commissioner. Really, Madam Speaker, through you, can they only find family and insiders willing to work for them? Or is this another attempt to censor disclosure of their ongoing ethics issues? Which is it?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs recused himself from all deliberations and decisions related to the appointment of the interim Ethics Commissioner.